So I think that kind of brings us back to that kind of sense of seeking advice then, actually, because it's one of those things that I think people have all these areas where it's quite easy and understandable to get help with your household bills. So whether that's, my blog or Money Saving Expert
Yeah.
or whatever it might be, that kind of stuff, it's easy to get and relatively easy to understand when you get the gist. And there's a big step up, I think, when people suddenly start thinking about pensions, about investments, that there's plenty there where they can learn for themselves, but maybe feeling that's where they want to get professional advice. But is that what it's for? Is that really a kind of, can you just do it yourself? Or should that be a case where you're going, right, here are my pensions, here are my portfolio, what should I do?
I'm 100% convinced that people can do it themselves, but not everybody wants to. Not everybody has the time. It is a big step to press the button and start moving pension money around, and then one of the things people say to me almost all the time is that they're happy to open a pension and even put some money into it on an online platform. But then they're confronted with like 2,500 available funds they can choose. And where the hell do you start with that? And I totally get that. Too much choice leads to inertia, which is why the platforms have done very well with like top 50 lists, which I'm deeply skeptical about, and all that sort of thing. So yes, you can do it on your own. We need to get over the assumption that a pension is a complicated thing. A pension is just an account, all right, with some pretty nifty tax benefits. An ISA is exactly the same. It's not a bank account. Instead of cash being held in there and you getting interest, with both pensions and stocks and shares ISAs particularly, you're buying what I would call real assets. So shares in companies, bonds, which are essentially IOUs to government sort of companies, stuff which can go up and down, and that's where the fear is. So it is possible to teach yourself about this stuff. There's tons on Meaningful Money. When it comes to investing, Moneyvator is a brilliant website. Damien Fay's Money to the Masses website, some good stuff on there as well. So you can teach yourself this stuff if you want to. But if you don't, then yes, that's why the financial advice community exists. The difficulty I think a lot of people will find is getting an advisor to work with them when they are just starting out. Now, that makes me cross, but in defense of my profession, we now have so many regulatory hoops to jump through that it is simply not profitable for most financial advisors to take on clients that don't have reasonable amounts to invest. But we're not all like that. So, for example, here at Jackson's, we have a service for what we call new accumulators. So, yes, there is an initial planning fee. It starts at about £500, so it's not to be sniffed at. But then we can set up like a coaching arrangement. So you pay us 35 quid a month retainer plus VAT, unfortunately. And we can then help you to invest. And, so you're still doing it yourself, but you have us looking over your shoulder. So that's proving a little bit too popular. So we're at capacity at the moment, but we're trying to work on that. Finding good staff in Penzance is hard, particularly qualified advisors. But so I see that happening more and more. There's some great financial coaches as well. Simon Ganessen of Wise Monkey Financial Coaching does some great work. And there's plenty others as well, where it's not about advice. It's about helping you, pointing you in the right direction. But that's why Meaningful Money exists, man. I want to try and equip people to not be paralyzed by fear, but to understand that actually investing it in rocket science with a bit of thought and a bit of work. You can understand it enough to be able to make really good decisions. Really, by far the most important factor in anybody's financial success is themselves, their own behavior. Things like paying yourself first. Things like not panicking when markets and the value of your pensions go down. It's not easy,
No.
but people who win with money are those that stay the course. And that is actually the most important thing when we are coaching clients. It's really keeping people in their seats, because they can do far more damage by bailing out of their investments at the wrong time than they can by choosing the wrong investments in the first place.
Yeah, it's one of those things that kind of people, I'm always wary of people who are sharing this information who don't have the qualification, because it's different between saying something about your household finances, which are kind of much smaller, but people recommending, particular shares or particular things, there can be a bit sort of risky. And obviously there's the whole regulation that comes with advice, like you said. So is it about a money level then when people want to seek advice, or are there particular kind of we're not talking about, to say that not confidence. Are there particular issues where you think actually this is a good time to go and get the advice?
Yeah, that's a good question. The regulatory thing is a real problem for me, by the way, because I am a regulated financial advisor. I cannot jump on my podcast, which is nothing to do with my regulated practice, by the way. It's a separate business. But I can't jump on this microphone and say, you need to buy this fund.
Yeah.
Because I'm breaking a million laws if I do that. Whereas if I was an unqualified journalist, right, I could say what on earth I want, which drives me nuts, right? But such is life. These are the rules I have to work within. So as long as I am a regulated individual, I have to be careful what I say. So no, it isn't really about how much you've got. Obviously, with bigger values, very often comes increased complexity, and it can be useful to work with a professional advisor to sort of simplify. My issue with a lot of financial advisors is that they immediately go to the end of what product fits, whereas very often what people have already is just fine, and it just needs a bit of tweaking within their existing pension, just change the funds that they're in or something like that. But very often it serves an advisor better to move money around. So if you're working with a financial advisor, you want watertight justification for what they are recommending. As opposed to you just keeping the money where it is and making tweaks. So sometimes it's about amounts, usually because amounts correlate with complexity.
Yeah.
Easily, though, I'm convinced that when you are accumulating, you're building wealth, really it comes down to paying yourself first. We've talked about that. Making sure that your income is protected, because that's the thing that's producing your ability to save for the future. And then just use pensions and ISAs, right? And spread the money around inside it. A decent multi-asset fund. So it's got a bit of shares in it, a bit of bonds, a bit of property, a bit of all sorts, and just let it run. Take more risk than you think you might need to, particularly if you're young and you've got time for that money to grow. Because time is a powerful factor in reducing the risk, actually, of investments. The longer they run for, the more the ups and downs are ironed out over time. And then at retirement, easily the point where people can get most value from a good financial planner is at retirement, because there's a million choices, and those choices have consequences which echo down for the rest of your life. So at retirement is the key point. When you're looking for an advisor, there's some questions you need to ask. I've got a sort of podcast on that. It's a little bit of an old one, but the questions remain true. You want a high level of qualification, because any advisor who has put the time into becoming chartered or certified, so chartered is Chartered Financial Planner. You can't shorten that. Certified is CFP, right? It's a very rare qualification. Look for those, because they tend to be the committed advisors who have worked very hard to get the level of qualification that they've got. And so that they're not sort of fly-by-night folks. And as with all these things, get recommendations from friends who they trust.
Yeah.
You know, people ideally in similar situation, maybe similar age group to you, dealing with the same sort of things. Get recommendations from them. And then there are services like Vouched For, where there are ratings. I'm sort of on the fence about the value of those things. Really.
Yeah, I was going to say, are those kind of, they're a directory, but like you get when you're trying to find a builder, they can be on a directory, doesn't mean they're any good. I wonder how valuable these things are.
Well, you can game them, so you can pay to be put towards the top. So from that point of view, be careful.
Yeah.
Caveat emptor. I do think I preach at advisors all the time, because we forget what a massive amount of trust clients give us when they walk in our doors or turn up on a Zoom call in these weird times we find ourselves, right? To open up about your finances to a complete stranger is a hell of a step. Advisors need to really realize that and make it as easy as possible for people. But you know what? We are really good. We've got like millennia of evolution on our side for when it comes to sniffing out bad people. So trust your gut, right? Trust your gut and ask your friends. That's a reasonable place to start for finding a good advisor. And if you're really struggling, send me an email, because I know most of the good ones around the country, and I can probably point you in the right direction.
Pete, fantastic. I think that's a really useful thing to think about there. To a sense of, like you're saying, coming to retirement, that is a key stage. One of the probably, other than buying a house when you're younger, and then maybe getting to retirement, they're probably two of the biggest sort of financial decisions you're going to make, aren't you, in your life? And it makes sense to get it right. You don't want to be making mistakes.
Mortgage broking, by the way, is a real specialism.
Yeah.
A lot of financial advisors kind of turn their nose up as the sort of like the lesser of the species, but mortgage advice, mortgage broking is a real specialism. So, and the mortgage broker will earn their fees many, many times over. because they'll know exactly where to place a case. I used to do mortgages back in the day about 20 years ago, and it wasn't my thing, really. But those who get it right are really worth their salt.
Awesome. Pete, thank you so much. It's great to finally sort of properly connect after years of chatting online and things like that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Well, man, thanks for having me. You're an excellent interviewer, I have to say. But
it's just a lovely chat. You're easy to talk to. It's because you are a pro. What are the best ways for people to find you? Obviously, there's the podcast, and where else?
Well, I mean, search for meaningful money, really. Whatever engine you put that in, you'll probably find me. So meaningfulmoney.tv
That's
is
an
the web
interesting
address.
one, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. I definitely regret that in many ways. You can get to me at .co.uk as well, but it's just been .tv. But that's because I started with video. I did like 2.5 years and 300 videos before I ever did a podcast. So it's meaningfulmoney.tv. I mean, even the logo is like a little TV screen with a play button in the middle. So, you'll find me. Meaningful Money. I'm Pete Matthew. No S on my surname, please. I've been my entire life with people getting that wrong.
Awesome. And what I'll do is I'll put links to some of those episodes that you mentioned as well in the notes below. So if you send them over to me, if you listen to this now, you can click through, listen to that episode about seeking advice and other bits and pieces as well. They'll be with the notes. It's a real pleasure, Pete. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, man. Great to do it.
And here are a couple more videos you might find interesting.